Yeah. People keep writing stories about the time he threw him out of Mar-a-Lago. Can you settle that? What was it about? What caused the breach with him?
That's such old history. Very easy to explain, but I don't want to waste your time by explaining it. But for years, I wouldn't talk to Jeffrey Epstein. I wouldn't talk because he did something that was inappropriate. He hired help. And I said, don't ever do that again. He stole people that worked for me. I said, don't ever do that again. He did it again. And I threw him out of the place.
Was he saying what I think he's saying here? I bet he wishes the bagpipes were playing during this slip of the tongue.
Great shape. The great deal was made with UK. The Prime Minister did a great job. You know, they've been trying to make that deal for 12 years and he got it done. And by the way, I never went to the island. And Bill Clinton went there supposedly 28 times. I never went to the island, but Larry Summers, I hear, went there. He was the head of Harvard. And many other people that are very big people. Nobody ever talks about them. I never had the privilege of going to his island. And I did turn it down, but a lot of people in Palm Beach were invited to his island.
Trump rounded out his Scotland trip in which he was met with some next level insults, proving once more that my fellow countryfolk are undefeated when it comes to imaginative insults.
Yet, immediately after getting off the plane today in Scotland, he was asked about Epstein. He clearly wants this trip to be his running away, across the pond, across the ocean, from the Epstein story. But it still followed him. This was Trump's view as his motorcade made its way to his golf course in Scotland today. One sign there reading, "Release the files, you lying jobby." I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but jobby. J-O-B-B-I-E, which I learned today is Scottish slang for poop, so...
At the press conference alongside UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, and like most pressers alongside fellow world leaders, Trump finds new ways to humiliate himself and the country as a whole.
Will you go to London, or are you worried it's no longer about this?
About what?
Will you visit London during the state visit?
I will. I'm not a fan of your mayor.
Why not?
I think he's done a terrible job. The mayor of London, but a nasty person. I think he's done. I think he's
a friend of mine, right?
No, I think he's done a terrible job. But I would certainly visit London. Yeah.
Would you say example? So MP Nigel Farage has asked Parliament to be...
But in a telling moment, the president, amidst more deflection about Democrats, Biden, Obama, Clinton, and any other that he can think of as he plays his own version of person, woman, camera, TV in front of the world, discussed the reason that he and Epstein had a rift in their once flourishing relationship. Not my words, by the way, but the words from Epstein himself. And I know what you're thinking. Surely it has to do with Epstein's despicable behavior, right? That spanned decades in which he would go on to be convicted for. Well, do we know who we are talking about here?
You know, on August 1st and beyond. Okay?
Mr. President, was part of the rush to get this deal done to knock the Jeffrey Epstein story out?
Oh, you got to be kidding with that. No, had nothing to do with it. Only you would think that. That had nothing to do with it.
People keep writing stories about the time he threw him out of Mar-a-Lago. Can you settle that? What was it about? What caused the breach with him?
That's such old history. Very easy to explain, but I don't want to waste your time by explaining it. But for years, I wouldn't talk to Jeffrey Epstein. I wouldn't talk because he did something that was inappropriate. He hired help. And I said, don't ever do that again. He stole people that worked for me. I said, don't ever do that again. He did it again. And I threw him out of the place, persona non grata. I threw him out, and that was it. I'm glad I did, if you want to know the truth.
That's right. President Donald Trump on Monday said that he threw his longtime friend Jeffrey Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago and cut ties with him because, quote, he stole people who worked for me. Trump said that Epstein poached at least one more employee from him after being warned not to do it again. Now, this is not the first time that the topic of Mar-a-Lago and Epstein has been brought into the spotlight, considering one of Epstein's victims, Virginia Giuffre, has said that British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell recruited her as a teenager to be exploited by Epstein when she was working as a spa attendant at Mar-a-Lago.
She is a monster. She's worse than Epstein. She did things even worse than Epstein did. She was vicious, she was evil, and she was a woman.
Her lawyers have said Ghislaine Maxwell is not a Jeffrey Epstein, that she has been a victim of media spin.
They're doing their job, but I know that woman. I've known her really well. Put it this way. Epstein was Pinocchio and she was Geppetto. She was the guy controlling
Pulling the strings?
Jeffrey. Yep, she was pulling the strings. She had his money. He had her contacts. But Ghislaine was much more conniving and smart than Epstein ever was.
But it's interesting, right? Because Trump's claims here contradict the statement from a White House spokesperson last week in which they said Trump expelled Epstein from Mar-a-Lago for, quote, being a creep. Well, according to Trump himself, business was the final straw. And it appears that while Trump hoped his golf excursion to Scotland would mean a break from the endless Epstein news, it wasn't the case, as not only were the Scottish people on hand to remind him, but he continues to be asked by reporters.
Part of the rush to get this deal done to knock the Jeffrey Epstein story out.
Oh, you got to be kidding with that.
It's understandable why Trump's struggling to get even his own base to take his word for it that there is nothing to see here, because to do so, you essentially have to believe everything we've learned about Trump over the years is irrelevant or sheer coincidence, that all Trump did was repeatedly host Epstein at Mar-a-Lago, have him at his wedding, hang out with him at Victoria's Secret fashion shows, get listed as a passenger on his plane 8 times, joke with him at a party while pointing out hot women and saying something into his ear that got the most grotesque smile in the history of human expressions. Tell a reporter, I've known Jeff for 15 years, terrific guy, he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side, and allegedly hosts a calendar girl competition where, other than the 24 or so women flown in to provide the entertainment, the only guests were him and Jeffrey Epstein. You'd also have to forget about Trump bragging about his ability to grab women's genitals and claiming he could go backstage at his beauty pageants while women were getting dressed, something he was accused of doing by 5 Miss Teen USA contestants, and once remarking of his own infant daughter Tiffany that she's got Marla's legs. We don't know whether or not she's got this yet, but time will tell. Beyond that, though, there's nothing there. Except for a jury finding him liable for sexual abuse, but other than that, there's nothing to see.
Why? Because the American people want to know. Poll after poll shows that they wildly disapprove of his handling of these files.
Johnson, the rules of political gravity absolutely apply to Donald Trump, and the USS Donald Trump is taking on a lot of water. What are we talking about? Trump's net approval rating. Look, he started off back in January +6 points on the net approval rating, -3 in March, -7 in May, and now he's at a term too low at -11 points. His net approval rating has dropped nearly 20 points in the aggregate since the beginning of his presidency. The American people do not like what they're seeing, and Donald Trump's administration is in a ton of trouble at this point in the minds of the American voters.
Well, on what issues do the American voters seem to disapprove of him?
They disapprove of him on all of the issues. He's underwater on all the major issues of the day. Trump's net approval rating on all the major issues, -5 points in immigration, his best issue. He's underwater. How about the economy? That was what he was elected for. -14 points. How about foreign policy? -14 points. How about trade and those tariff wars? -15 points. And of course, the Epstein case, the lowest of the bunch, -37 points, 37 points below water. My goodness gracious. On every single issue.
His own supporters are tired of the deflection.
Thursday, Trump begrudgingly ordered Pam Bondi to move a judge to unseal the grand jury testimonies related to the Epstein case. Now, I want to be clear, absolutely nothing is going to come of that, and I'll explain why. But the point here is that MAGA revolted against Trump, and we won. But the question lingers, why? Why has it come to this, right? Like, what are we doing here? What is Trump hiding? Why is he going down like this over Jeffrey Epstein? Trump is playing games. He is. I'm sorry. He is flat out playing games right now. In fact, he's doing that thing that we always felt the press was doing to Trump supporters, thinking that we're stupid. Going, okay, they don't know much about how the law works. If I just say I'm going to unseal something, then it looks like I'm acting, and then I'm going to call everybody who doesn't agree with that a troublemaker. He knows exactly what he's doing. What is the connection between Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump? Because clearly there is something here that gives him pause.
And the more he acts like this, the more suspect he becomes.
What happened to the lawyer who got Epstein his bizarrely lenient plea deal when he was first arrested on sex trafficking charges in Florida? What happened to the lawyer who got him that bizarrely lenient plea deal? Well, Trump hired him to be his own lawyer. What happened to the U.S. attorney who gave Jeffrey Epstein that bizarrely lenient plea deal? Trump put him in his cabinet in his first term. Well, who then prosecuted Epstein a second time when he was brought up on federal charges? That was the SDNY line prosecutor who Trump inexplicably fired last week. Who was in charge of the Department of Justice and the Bureau of Prisons when Epstein then killed himself in federal custody? President Donald Trump. Who bragged to a reporter about how much Epstein seemed to like women on the younger side? Who said Epstein was a lot of fun to be with? Who bragged that he was friends with Epstein for 15 years? Who flew on his plane at least 7 times? And who now says that everybody needs to stop talking about Jeffrey Epstein right now? Answers there are Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, and Donald Trump.
The truth is more important than ever. Check out our new Truth Over Lies collection at store.MeidasTouch.com. All 100% USA union made.